Hello, and welcome to Speaking of Supply Chain, where we explore trends, current events, and innovations impacting the logistics and supply chain industries. I'm your host, Ellen Wood. I am pleased to be joined by Victor Splittgerber today from WAKU Robotics, and we have a really great conversation today about this robotics control and management software that is available for Victor. What does it do? Does it just completely control the robots? Does it manage them? It looked like a little bit of both.
It's essentially a new category, right? Because
Something
implementing
completely new.
robots is a huge topic, right? And I mean, in a few years from now, any manual forklift will be automated, so it just becomes another feature to a forklift. So we will have lots and lots of mobile robots, so to say. And
All the
we
mobile
offer
robots.
operations software to help companies make that transition. And companies meaning the end user, but also everyone in the supply chain, so to say, meaning the integrators and the OEMs as well. So we connect the ecosystem, if you like.
All right. So it sounds like we are going to have a great conversation today. I want to take a break really quick and get to know you a little bit more personally. So our icebreaker question today is, if you won a lottery, if you became independently wealthy overnight tonight, what would you do with your time? You don't have to work anymore. You can do whatever you want. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's not so easy, right? But I guess I would do exactly the same. So I like being an entrepreneur. I really love my job, right? It gives me a lot of freedom. It allows me to express my creativity. It allows to build important stuff, and most and foremost, it allows us. It allows me to help other people and give back, so to say, and that's what I really like.
I don't know that I like that answer. Of course, we do need innovators in this world, and we are glad that there are those of you who enjoy doing that. I would take a break. If I won the lottery tonight, I would go on vacation first thing tomorrow morning. I would get on a plane. I would just go to the airport and find somewhere to go, and take a long vacation.
It's a fair assessment, right? I probably would take a break between two startups just to recap and reflect. But in the end, I guess this is like true for many true entrepreneurs. That's just a thing that we like to do. We love to build companies.
That's true. Well, and you know that you make an excellent point that eventually you have to do something with your time. You can't go on vacation forever. It would be fun, but that's not a long-term strategy. I would probably have to find something to do with my time. I really enjoy learning, so I might just go back to college and take every class. Just take classes that interest me, take classes that, strike my fancy, and just learn about lots of things. I'm an avid reader, so, going to a library and just picking up a new book every day, like that would be heaven. I would probably do something along those lines if I never had to work again and could just do whatever I wanted. But even that, you make it sound lazy that that's what I want to do, because you want to continue doing something. I would eventually probably follow in that vein and use all that knowledge to do something.
In
But
the
yeah,
end, yeah, like it gets super boring, right? Like anything you do, right? Like sitting in a library and reading books all day, right? At some time you want to apply it, and yeah. So it's
yeah.
not that far off, probably, right?
You know what? You've given me a lot to think about. Now I've completely reevaluated my entire lottery winnings plan. It's a good thing I don't have a ticket, so I
Suddenly it's
can't
not
win.
vacation anymore, yeah.
All right, let's get back to our topic today, which is robotics. And robotics are becoming very, very, very popular recently in supply chain, even more so since the pandemic. I know they were on the market previously, but they were struggling to gain popularity. And in the past few years, we've seen a massive uptick in the number of companies that are looking to implement robotics. And so two of the most popular solutions out there are the AMRs and AGVs. So tell us a little bit about those two particular robots and what WAKU does, because you don't have the robots, correct? You're just the software.
Exactly. We just the software. Yeah. Um, so really starting at the beginning, if you like, AGVs are automated guided vehicles. So they're pretty much like fixed machines, pretty rigid. They're there since over 50 years. Automotive uses them since forever, almost, right? And you can almost imagine it like being a train on rails. So they really follow a fixed path. It also takes a bit to install them. But once you install them, they're super robust. So, like you can easily operate them for 20 years and, like they will exactly follow the same line after 20 years, like on day one. So that's great. And it really helped us. But then there's this new technology, AMRs, autonomous mobile robots. It's basically inspired by autonomous vehicles. So the technology is fairly similar. The similar types of sensors that are used, like LiDARs, laser ranging sensors, if you like, so to measure distances. And also the set of algorithms is fairly similar. And the difference is then to the train on rails, if you like, that mobile robots are more like cars on a street, so they can freely navigate along certain lines or like paths, if you like, so they can drive around obstacles and all this kind of behaviors. And typically, if we speak about AMRs, we think about applications in warehouses or manufacturing. But of course, there's also the broader scope of mobile robots that is developing very rapidly and also merging with some other technologies. So what we have seen is, for example, applications in restaurants where you have those robots that serve you meal, right? I guess
Yes,
that's
I
fairly
saw one
similar.
the other day that was so neat.
Oh, really? So I never
Yes.
saw. I only saw one like together with my kids, and yeah, they were like uh, unexpectedly unimpressed, I have to say. So they were not super impressed, and I was, hey, that's awesome, like that's what I'm doing, and they were like, yeah, no, don't touch the thing. Maybe they were also a bit of scared, but yeah. So we will see many more of those, right? Because lack of labor is hitting every sector. And we certainly need these robotic workforces in every place. So cleaning machines is another category, right? Everyone knows a vacuum cleaner at homes, but for industrial scale, they're of course a bit bigger. So you can imagine airports and so on. Yard management, so like those trucks that handle containers are automated at the moment. Airports, so like those pushback maneuvers will be done by mobile robots. And new categories evolving, like humanoid robots. So that's something that is super hot at the moment. So like basically robotized humans, if you like, but on a much lower scale, just to don't scare anyone away. So they're still pretty simple what they can do. But looks like this topic is taking off. And then to close it, so to say, we have this mobile robots, which is like today really about autonomous forklifts and autonomous applications basically to move stuff around. So like shelves, items, pallets can be moved around. And we develop software that help companies to identify, to operate, and to service these kind of mobile robots.
Okay. So when a company is deciding to implement a robotic solution, so they're about ready to purchase a fleet of AMRs or AGVs, one of the two. Is that when WAKU Robotics comes in to say, "Oh, you're purchasing robots. We can help you manage those," or is it usually after the fact when they've got this, herd of robots wandering around their facility and they're like, "I need help. Help us manage these." When do you typically come into the facility and offer the solution?
So it's really along the entire journey, how we call it. And the first step for many is lotsofbots.com. Very easy, lots of bots. And we have it's a huge comparison website that we're building up, over 400 different robots that you can filter for use cases. You have service companies that help you to implement and design solutions. We have components because a robot doesn't come alone, right? You need charger, sensors, and all sorts of periphery that comes along. So, and of course, a lot of resources that help you to understand and learn about the domain. So I guess that's a good first step. With some companies, we also do consulting to help them with the first steps. And that's typically like really a first scan which applications are viable, because certain conditions need to be met, like very repetitive movements, and most robots are still fairly expensive. So when I said in the beginning, at some point every robot will be automated, and autonomy is just another feature to a forklift, we are not there yet. So it's still fairly expensive. So tens of thousands of euro more than just the unautomated machine, just to give an idea. So you have to do a fairly good calculation. So that's the first step. So lotsofbots.com is a good first step. Maybe we help you with doing that. And like then later on, some approach us when they want to add another robot to their fleet. So they have vendor A in their operations and already working fine, and then they want to add a second vendor, a second use case. Then in that case, they gonna contact us to say, hey, like how can we arrange those mixed fleets? And then we have a service and maintenance tool that is mostly for OEMs and integrators that want to have a software solution to handle their maintenance and service tasks, so to say, to automate many of those tasks and managing partners and end users in a proper way. Because in the end, autonomous robot is not a forklift. It has different needs. It has a lot of sensors. It's a complicated machine after all that needs proper handling and proper education of the people that operate those robots on a daily basis.
Well, and you bring up a good point. When companies who have already put in a robotic solution, a mobile robotic solution, and then their facility expands, their business expands, they need more, and that's where WAKU can really provide some additional value. Is they don't have to go back to the original vendor. They don't have to get the same type of robot. They don't have to clear out their fleet and start over from scratch. Your solution, your software helps control fleets of mixed sizes, mixed types of robots, large fleets, smaller fleets, and it's scalable. So it allows them to be able to manage their entire fleet regardless of how it was put together, whether it was all a single purchase or built over time. Am I understanding that correctly?
Absolutely. Just one point. So, like most companies don't have robots at all today. So, I was
There's very
yesterday at
few, yes.
a conference, and I asked. There were maybe 100 or 200 people, and I asked, like who is already operating mobile robots, and we're like 10 or 15 people. So that's about my feeling, right? So maybe 10 or 15% of the companies do operate robots. And of that one, only a small fraction has mixed fleets. So are at a level where they have a first system and want to add another one. What most companies looking at today is to get it right from the beginning, so to say, and to buy this optionality. You can imagine it like an insurance to be able to add other brands in the future. So like buying optionality and having this insurance to add other use cases. So it's not necessarily that you want to change your brand, so to say, but it's oftentimes that one vendor only has a certain portfolio, typically, right? And then you have like another use case that you want to cover. So imagine you have maybe pallet movement and you want to add the cleaning robot, or a picking solution, or at some point a humanoid robot, right? And you need to make sure that those systems talk to each other. And that's kind of what many companies looking now for.
Right. They don't want to limit themselves in the future. They want that flexibility. So that is I like the way you call it, an insurance policy, to make sure that everything is still possible in the future, that they aren't limited and boxed into one particular solution. Do you have, so I know you said there aren't many companies out there that are currently using robots. It's still an expensive venture. It's a big investment to deploy a mobile robotic solution. And even though you said earlier that there are a lot of companies, these robots have been around for years, and there are companies that have been using robotic solutions, especially in the automotive industry, for a long time. What kind of like success stories do you have from your solutions? Do you have a customer who is able to accomplish something really fantastic through using this control system? I mean, I'm imagining that, like you were just mentioning, when you get another type of robot in, you've got the AMRs, and you get a cleaning robot, and there's just a traffic jam or an accident in the warehouse where the two robots crashed into each other. What types of benefits are you able to provide for your clients with this solution that controls all of them?
So, like, multiple additions maybe to what you said. So one, like, those robots don't crash into each other. And what they rather do is they block each other because they have those safety sensors, and they don't crash. They just can't find a way around each other. So that's what typically happens, just to take some fears away, right? So, like, those robots are much safer than any human forklift driver. Just to make that clear, right? So it's a huge safety factor. That's actually a huge buying reason for many to buy those types of equipments, even in low cost countries. So and maybe that's the second point. The robot prices came down drastically over the last years. So if you looked into the prices of an application like 5 years ago, you can imagine that you're now like at a fraction of the cost, maybe 30%. So what we're seeing is really a price decrease. If you pick one application like autonomous forklifts, that every year the price drops around 20 to 30%. So it's really a massive cost reduction over time. And that has to do with the software that gets better, and also like just economy of scale, right? More applications, cheaper sensors, cheaper batteries. So all of this come together to make those technologies much more accessible, so that it becomes attractive for logistics. It wasn't attractive for logistics 20 years ago, probably even 10 years ago, it wasn't attractive. But now you have those huge companies like Geek Plus, like Locus, that operate thousands of robots. Like Geek Plus has over 30,000 robots deployed. Amazon Robotics has over 500,000 of robots deployed. To give some numbers, it's really there, right? It's nothing that is like far in the future. It's really there and today. And how did we help companies? So again, like, we have different user groups. We have the OEMs. There, we connected sometimes hundreds of robots, and that's about automating the maintenance task, and really like predictive maintenance, that you exchange parts like batteries or motors before really process interruptions happens, and also to optimize the whole maintenance that is done to do it at the exact right time, and not too early, not too late, and certainly not on a fixed schedule like every half a year or so. So that's a huge part. And of course, like, again, like most companies never applied a mobile robot. You bring the machine, and you want to make sure that all the sensors are cleaned at the right schedule, and that they are properly maintained, because otherwise the robots just stop. Because if there's it's that simple, right? It's I have my vacuum cleaning robot here at home, right? And it also asks me to clean the sensor, like take a brush, because otherwise it's not driving, it just stops. And most mobile robots don't have such a system, and that's what we essentially provide here, right? It's fairly similar actually. And of course, again, brand independent. So many integrators support many brands to offer or to cover different use cases. So that's one. So like there we have certainly in goods to person, we have a huge installed base. And then secondly, in terms of end customers, one of our flagship customers is TTI, which is a listed company. They have many billions of turnover per year, and they operate in Germany, for example, a fleet of 20 robots. Like one vendor is MIR, Mobile Industrial Robots, which is in AMR. 15 of those, and then they have another 4 AGVs. So that's also interesting, where you have the combination of the both technologies actually, and we let those two systems collaborate. And before that wasn't simply possible. They couldn't operate both systems. They were limited in expanding their automation. They also face the same challenge that they need to grow their business without growing their workforce, because there are no people. And the only resource that they have is robots and other automation, certainly, but in that particular application. And we were really enabling that use case. And they're super happy customers.
That's great. So what is changing in the industry about the way that robots are being deployed? You obviously see these deployments taking place. You've tracked the progress over the years. You say they're much more affordable now. The prices are dropping, but there's still a low adoption rate in terms of how many companies are utilizing robotic solutions, mobile robotic solutions. Let's make sure we're clear on that, because robots are happening everywhere. But if it's slow to adopt but gaining traction, what's changing that people are more open to these robotic solutions? Is it because your software is enabling them to have more options in the future once they make that decision? Is it more about what the robots are capable of doing? Is it just a matter of price? What's driving the changes in the market?
It's definitely the lack of labor, right? That's a huge concern, and there are simply no workers to operate a forklift. So
we're trying to do too many
already
things.
Pretty straightforward, right?
Yes.
But still, there needs to be a business case. So also the prices came down a lot. So I just thought, right, on average we track like 30% year over year, which is like over a couple of years. That's massive. So like just to make it more concrete, maybe for manual forklift, so to say, that you wanted to automate, that was like maybe 7-8 years ago, that was like $200,000, and now prices are around $70,000 or even lower. Like we even see solutions that go as low as $20,000 for automated forklift, and that is like just massive, right? It's like the earlier or these new entrants are in the market, the more risk you're also taking as a user, so to say, right? Because like they're not so established than the older systems that are often more expensive. So there's a price to it, so to say. So to answer your question, right, it's like the demand, it's the price for the machines, and then like also the performance of the systems. I told you about the software that is very similar to mobile cars or to autonomous cars, and that makes them applicable for logistics contexts. So like a warehouse is fairly unstructured, and it's a lot of movement, and it's not like manufacturing, right? In many regards, because also like the people that use the robots that operate alongside those robots are less trained oftentimes, and so there are many different demands that are now met, and that allows these technologies to be applied. And with our software, we really more help this journey to help companies to be successful in this journey. And that starts with services like this solution tool, lotsofbots.com. That goes on with analytics, so like really understanding how to improve a process, how to improve your operations, not so much on the robot side, but really on the operations side. And buying this optionality, so you also have a lot of flexibility. You don't need to install a big system with hundreds of vehicles or so, but you can start small, oftentimes even with rental solutions. So that makes the entrance into the space fairly easy. And then again, like this maintenance is also a small topic, but then it's a huge topic because like everything needs to come together that those projects are successful, and these companies want to get it right in the beginning, because like once they have a backlash, so to say, right, and they implement a project that didn't properly work, like you have a lot of negative sentiment. And therefore, like we really help companies to make those first steps successful, and later on, of course, also the scaling successful. But since most companies just getting started, it's about those first steps. By the way, like we have also some bigger clients out of the 3PL domain that have huge fleets, though. Like we also see kind of a division in the market between, I would say, these early adopters that started a few years ago, like really investing into the space, forming a strategy, deploying different systems from different vendors, and really are like 2-3 steps ahead of the competition. And then oftentimes the smaller 3PLs are a bit behind. So they just now start to implement their first systems. The others are already like 5 years or so there. And so we also see kind of this division in the market, and especially with the more advanced players, we offer, based on all our tooling, a comparison of different systems to compare total cost of ownerships. Since we track the performance of the different systems, goods to person, so like there are oftentimes hundreds of robots in one installation, and you want to know like what's the performance of the system, what does it cost me to operate in terms of how much service do I need to put in terms of work, but also in terms of spare parts. And that together gives me the total cost of ownership of a system for a given performance. And that feeds back into the planning, so to say. And that's very, very attractive for those big 3PLs that have fleets around the
Larger
world.
fleets. Yeah.
And you want to make sure, like you compare them properly, you have best practices that you can share, and therefore you need like independent analytics, really going down deep into the robot system, like down to the battery performance, down to the motor uptime, and like really on a detailed level, right? Like of course you have Power BI and those tools, but they stay on a fairly high level, and really go down into the machine room if you want.
That's significant that level of information can be available to your clients with this software to really understand that cost of ownership. I imagine that's a huge impact, not only for those large 3PLs, but for any client who's considering this. You mentioned something else a moment ago, and you were talking about implementations that go poorly or that don't roll out according to plan, and how that can cause negative feelings. And I did have that question because a lot of times robotics solutions can be polarizing in terms of, whether the employees are happy about it. I know we were talking about labor being an issue, and there has been, at least in the US, the labor strikes out on the West Coast because employees were concerned about robotics solutions. That was one of the reasons, not the entire situation, but it's a factor in a lot of companies where they're wanting to roll out more automated solutions in order to stabilize when the labor market is volatile. And so that it can be a difficult thing even for the employees that remain or will be retained, that they have to work with a robot now, and that can cause a lot of negative feelings. So do you work with your clients as they're considering these implementations on that change management to really get that adoption buy-in from the beginning, or is that left to an outside consultant? Is that left to the company themselves to manage their own team and all of that? Or do you come in and support that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we help companies being successful in this journey, and the cultural change, so to say, is just part of it. And you mention those labor strikes, maybe. There are solutions to that one, right? Getting people early on involved, like skilling, like training them or give
Mm-hmm.
them skilling them up, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's one. It can be as easy as or giving names to the robots, right? That already helps to somehow have the
To
feeling that
humanize
those
them.
are colleagues and not like some sort of yeah, abstract being, so to say. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes even important what kind of names, because animal names, fictional names are more digestible or more supportive than human names, for example. It's super interesting. So there's a whole
Oh,
arc to that one. Um,
so
but
treating it like a pet.
yeah, exactly. Like it's like a donkey also, right? Or like your horse. And then it becomes much easier to understand that like it doesn't take your job. It helps you. And the other part that is super interesting is that more generally spoken, robotics will change how companies operate, and especially in logistics, because like logistics is a domain where companies deploy tens of thousands of people, right? So that's their business, like managing people, if you like, right? And there's a lot of fluctuations, right? Oftentimes people don't stay very long in a company, and because yeah, they're fairly lower level skill levels that are needed. And that changes with robotics, right? You need to train your workforce, you need to keep your workforce, you need to really make a different job in how you handle your operations. Before it was just handling many people, right? And now certainly you need to handle technology, and you have a labor force that is much better skilled. And so this is also a company change, right? How do you skill your labor, and how do you really change your culture in that way that it's more about getting the best out of the robots, where we support with our software, instead of like trying to optimize processes so that the people can work more efficiently. So there's also a lot of change happening there, and it's a lot about IT. How do I connect those systems into my ERP landscape? How do I make an integration layer, and so on? So it's a lot about that one, and so that's a shift, right? We are just at the beginning again, right? And but that is really a massive change. So like this buildup of IT talent, of robotic operators, um, that is something that needs to be taken into account, and certainly where we also help companies to form a strategy around.
Awesome. So I have one last question, and that is, what is the biggest or the most common objection that you run into when trying to promote this offering, to promote robotics use, to promote your software? When you're trying to sell this, what's the objection that you hear most often, or the biggest one, and how do you overcome it?
So IT is always an issue, right? So like we have a very safe software that is really tested and certified, but having a VPN connection down to the robot into the like through this firewall, so to say, and in the Wi-Fi network of the client of the warehouse is a topic, I have to say. So we pull data really on a second basis. We have huge algorithms that run in the cloud that crunch data, and machine learning algorithms to condensing knowledge out of like this huge data streams of tens of thousands of data points per minute. And so like these discussions around VPN connection is probably the part that takes the longest in such projects. We of course try to help to facilitate those discussions, but sometimes our last resort is really saying, okay, like we do provide you an on-premise solution, because like sometimes with automotive clients, for example, they are really hardline with like putting data in the cloud. It's just a no, right? It's
yeah. Okay,
and,
so data security is the concern.
Yeah, so there's this topic around, do I use cloud software or not, and how much rights do I have, and and it's right, like we absolutely promote data security. It's a huge topic. It's absolutely essential, right? And many companies, like shut down for weeks and months because they had a security incident. So it's absolutely essential, right? But sometimes, like maybe it's on the wrong corner, so to say, where those concerns are. Maybe like we have a very safe software, so to say. Like I imagine it to be a bit easier because we really are concerned with security, and like with 90% of the clients, it's totally fine. But of course, like there are those another categories that says, we want to have it on site.
That's fantastic that you have that flexibility to offer that to your clients. So when they have that concern, you've got a solution. Obviously, you'll try and convince them and help them to understand how safe it is. But if it is a hard line in the sand, that you're able to work with them anyway. So any last remarks? Anything else that you want to tell our listeners before we close out for today?
Yeah, so I can strongly encourage you, if you never tip your toe into the waters of mobile robots, visit lotsofbots.com. It's a great resource, great overview on the market, right? Really what's there. I have also my own podcast called WAKU Update. So there are a few English episodes also there on the Chinese ecosystem, for example. That was a huge success. And it's, of course, like super down into the topic, but anyone who's interested. And of course, like reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just text me if you have any interesting project or any potential to improve your robot operations. And looking forward to hear from you.
Of course. And I did notice that if our listeners go to WAKU Robotics, that you are the little chat bot that pops up. It's
that I am 24/7 available for questions with the chatbot. Yeah, I managed to replicate myself, and no, not yet. Absolutely. So you can, of course, check out waku-robotics.com, where you find an overview of everything I told you. And
all right.
It's a great conversation, Ellen.
Thank you so much, Victor, for joining me today and telling us a little bit more about this software solution that helps to manage mobile robotics fleets. Again, to our listeners, if you would like to learn more about WAKU Robotics, lotsofbots.com. We've got WAKU Robotics. You can find Victor on LinkedIn. We'll have those links down in our description. And that brings us to the end of our episode today. Thank you, Victor, so much for joining us. I'm just really excited about some of these innovations in the industry and seeing what's possible. I love your innovative style and an entrepreneurial spirit, and I know that there's going to be some great things in the future coming from your company. For our listeners, if you have a suggestion or a topic for our podcast, please let me know at podcast@mebach.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow us, subscribe in your podcast app. But as always, thank you for listening to Speaking of Supply Chain. We'll tune in next time. Bye-bye.